What's up, YouTube? This is Brian, also known as Sherwood Sound, and I am a data analyst by day and a music producer by night. And this video is going to be my top 50 rappers of all time. This list is my opinion. I started this process like a year ago by compiling the top 200 rappers of all time, and that was basically the internet's opinion. I compiled a list from different sources, from vlogs to music critics to publications, and I basically created a ported system, combined all those to create a top 200 rappers list. I released that 200 list in 4 different parts. You can go check those videos out on my channel, and this is going to be my list. I heavily favor creativity, but I also put a lot of emphasis on lyricism as well as technical skill. And my opinion is obviously important. If anyone tells you that their opinion isn't in their top 50 list or whatever list they're making, then they're full of it. This is definitely the rappers that I like the most, on top of some other analytical points. There's some people on here that you do not see. I also created a video that basically explains my omissions. There's like 18 rappers that are on a lot of these lists that I didn't include on mine, and I'll tell you why I didn't include them on that video. But anyways, I'm a big hip hop fan. I've been a hip hop fan since I was 10 or 11, and now I'm an old guy, so I've been listening to rap for a long time. And without further ado, here's my list. All right, everybody. Now we get to it. The top 60, top 50, top 60 rappers of all time, according to me. We can go. I'll go ahead and try to get through this pretty quick. I know most people are probably just interested in the list and not too much of my BSing, but I will give an explanation on each. If you look at the list, there's going to be their person's name, their birthday, where they're from, or most associated with, a track that I really think stands out from them, and then where they fell on the consensus ranking versus where I felt they just belonged. So you can see that it's either going to be a plus or a minus, depending on the consensus ranking. We're going to start off with Denzel Curry, one of the most exciting new artists that's out there. I love the fact that he's not willing to experiment. This dude will collaborate with anybody, but he is, with his fun-loving personality, and I think a lot of the rappers from the South kind of get mischaracterized as not lyrical or not skillful, but the dude has plenty of skills, he has plenty of charisma, and he's just starting to enter his creative peak. The dude said he wants to make an album in every genre before he quits music, which is exciting, because a lot of he's done collaborations with heavy metal artists, from rappers of all different stripes. And I just think that this guy is really hitting his creative stride. I kind of put him as a shout out to the younger generation, as someone who's really, I think you should keep your eye on, and someone who's just super talented. You listen to Ultimate, dude, he just has a rapid fire flow throughout that, but he can also do some more melodic stuff. He can get down with some Texas stuff. And like I said, he's collaborated with heavy metal artists before. Denzel Curry is just one of the most exciting young artists out right now, and I'll be interested. I think he has staying power because so many of these guys from his era have kind of flamed out already. Next up is Rhapsody. She's been around a long time in the indie rap circuit. Definitely one of the most lyrical female artists that you're going to find out there. Definitely high quality bars, a great storyteller. Her albums tend to be very personal. Her last album that she released was full of high quality lyricism. Just one of her most skillful rappers out here. As far as for female rappers, I don't have a ton on this list. I didn't feel like putting people on there just to put them on there, but Rhapsody can definitely hold her own as a technician against any of the heavyweights out there. She's a great writer, and hopefully she continues to make great music and being a standard bearer for females in hip hop for a long time. Next up is Cog. Cog is definitely, rest in peace, first of all, but he definitely created his own kind of lane of hip hop. He really blended, or kind of put on the edge, the spoken word poetry elements of hip hop and hip hop itself. He was right on the edge there, and he created some very sparse music, but always heavy, always thoughtful, always poetic. Ka was one of the most thought-provoking rappers out there. If you listen to some of his later projects, whether that's The Thief Next to Jesus or Descendants of Cain, you can feel the weight of the world on this man's shoulders, and he just created so much mood within his music, so inspirational, and someone who really dominated his own lane. Like, you cannot say anyone else sounded like Ka or was in his lane. He was his own lane, and he will truly be missed. Next up, we got ODB, another person who truly inhabits their own lane, and I think ODB was kind of right when that gangster rap wave was coming. Obviously Wu-Tang came out, kind of mafioso rap, a little bit of gangster flair, but they also had their own thing going. And ODB just really made it cool to be yourself. Like, he wasn't trying to be gangster, he wasn't trying to be a mafioso, he wasn't trying to be cool. He was just the personification of himself, and I think he made a lane for a lot of unique rappers after him to go in there. I mean, Biz Markie was in kind of that similar flair, was like you could just be an oddball and find your own lane. But that's not to say that ODB didn't have bars. He did have bars, and he did have charisma on the mic. You listen to an ODB song, you know it's an ODB song. It's hard not to fall in love with this man after listening to a few of his tracks. Sure, his career was kind of short-lived, but he did create two great solo albums, along with a lot of his, Wu-Tang efforts as well. Sure, he did reuse. He was a bar recycler, but I just don't think he gets enough love, dude. You listen to ODB and you just think to yourself, like, the man has such unique flavor. He wasn't scared to dance all over the beat. He didn't have to be right on time. He could leave the beat and come back to it when he wanted to, and it still sounded dope as hell. Truly a unique unicorn individual, and rap was not the same after he left the game. That's for sure. Next up is Plug One. A rapper that I don't think gets enough love in the upper echelon. Like, everyone will say that De La Soul is one of the greatest hip hop groups of all time, but the main frontman of that group, Plug One, does not get the kind of credence in the best rappers of all time. It's kind of confusing to me, because the man uh, was a monster. He may not have been like a super lyrical heavyweight, but De La Soul put down bars. He put down bars. He definitely stood out as an amazing rapper. De La Soul's whole vibe of being a positive group in the midst of a lot of negativity, lives on to this day. And I think Plug One doesn't get enough credit how central he was to De La Soul's success. He was a good storyteller, a good lyricist. While he may not have blown people away with his technical ability, he was definitely a good rapper, and De La Soul wouldn't have been what it was without him leading the group. Next up is Billy Woods. A lot of people think Billy Woods, he's been around for a long time. A lot of people may think he's younger, just because he's made such an impact later in his career. But the man is a monster. From Arm& Hammer to his solo work to his multiple collaborations with, Kenny Siegel and others. Billy Woods is just a monster, keeping it political, keeping it revolutionary, kind of showing his feelings about the way the world works, and it kind of mirrors a lot of what we see going on. I think that Hiding Places is one of the greatest, solo underground solo efforts of all time. Just the amount of vibe he inhabits in that, and then Arm& Hammer's work of being willing to, flick off the man, raise the middle finger to the universe, let people know that what they're seeing is effed up, and not being willing and not being afraid to say it. But he's a great writer too, and he has such confidence on the mic. While his delivery may be low key, he still definitely shows you a technical range. He can inhabit multiple flows, multiple feelings, and he's a great writer, great storyteller. And you got to have some people who are willing to be revolutionaries in hip hop. Next up is JID. Probably, as far as the new crop goes, or newer rappers or younger rappers, I guess I should say, there's really no one who's touching him technically right now. He's a technical genius. I mean, he's just dances all over beats, multiple syllable rhyme schemes, does kind of the real kind of dork level rap. Jid has it. I've heard people say that Jid can't be one of the best rappers of all time because he's too technical. And it goes over people's heads. They just don't see how good this man is because he makes it look so effortless. And I would tend to agree with him. The reason he's not, I mean, obviously he's going to end up in the top 50 before he's done. I wasn't a huge fan of his last album, God Does Love Ugly, or whatever it is. I listened to it a couple times few. I think that, the Never Story, the Forever Story, and DiCaprio 2 are superior efforts. I don't know why that last album didn't resonate with me as much. He's still on top of his game technically. I don't know if it was overproduced. Maybe I like him a little raw. I'm not sure why it didn't connect with me as much. The dude is definitely going to end up in the top 50 by the time he's done. He's still a younger guy. Hopefully he has several good to great albums to classics in his future. and I can't wait to see what he does next. But obviously, an amazing technician. Next up is Ludacris, a rapper who doesn't get taken as seriously as I think he should, mainly because he had such a kind of goofball persona. He wasn't afraid to have fun while rapping in an era where a lot of people were afraid to have fun. I mean, he kind of was kind of where that gangster rap was kind of transitioning to the shiny suit era. That's when Ludacris was mainly prevalent, but he did put the South on the map. He really got the South to be taken seriously commercially. Like Outkast was obviously around at that time too. But he really got people to pay attention to the South on a more national scale as opposed to a regional scale. And he definitely showed that the South can sell a lot of records. That's what he did. But he also created bangers, great hooks. But he was a very good technical rapper, a great writer. I'm not going to say he was one of the best lyricists of all time, one of the greatest technicians of all time, but he had tons of personality, tons of charisma, and doesn't get enough credit as where he lands in the pantheon of hip hop. Next up, Dell, another rapper who I think is hugely underrated and underrepresented. Del the Funky Homie Sapien, from his work with Hieroglyphics to his stuff with on Deltron 3030 to his solo stuff. He's just an amazing, unique character. Such a unique voice, unique flow, unique style, great writing, willing to comment on political issues, inequality, political stuff, but he's also willing to commentate on philosophy. He's also like, often telling the future. I mean, I think, such a mystical figure. And I mean, obviously, the Gorillas owe so much of their success to him. And I think that without Dell, I just I don't want to live in a world where Dell was not a part of hip hop and just go listen to some of his tracks. He's such a unique character. He does lyricism and underground in his own unique way. And I just love the fact that his flow is so him and is really unreplicatable, and no one has really sounded like him since. He's still out there, he's still active, and is still an amazing artist, and truly underrepresented, I think, in how people feel about hip hop. As you can tell by the consensus ranking, how much I bumped him up versus how people feel about him in general. Next up, 50 Cent. Here's a rapper. We talked about a couple rappers that I think are underrated. Here's a rapper I personally feel is overrated. I really obviously want to get him in the top 50, but I couldn't even do that just for my honest feelings about 50 Cent. The dude made several bangers, obviously charismatic on the mic, but his technical rapping wasn't great. I felt like his writing was lackluster. I can't really stand his flow, which is very samey, and I mean, I don't want to pick on the guy for getting shot in the face, but dang, dude, his voice I don't find particularly compelling, and I just think for whatever reason he gets put in top 10 conversations. Um, I just don't find it. I just don't find his lyricism there. I don't find his storytelling there. I don't find his technical ability there. I don't find his flow there. While he definitely created hits and was definitely influential, and I'm not trying to say again, if you made it on the top 60 list, you're not a bad rapper. I'm not saying that 50 Cent is a bad rapper. I just find people rate him far higher than I tend to. I think he's also a very polarizing rapper. A lot of people will probably fall in my camp or think he's overrated. A lot of people really put him up there. I don't know if it's when you came up listening to hip hop where you kind of put 50 Cent in your pantheon. Again, a very talented rapper. I just don't put him as high as a lot of others do. Here's another rapper that I think is really overrated. I know this is going to hurt because I know people who are going to watch a video like this are also probably going to be J. Cole fans because they're interested in hip hop as an art or as a science. And J. Cole definitely has technical skills, and he's a great writer, by the way. Um, I just find something about J. Cole inherently disingenuous. I feel like this man does not rap how he feels. I feel like he's constantly trying to rap how he thinks he's supposed to rap. I mean, just for an example, the guy drops bitch in his rhymes all the time. I don't think this man has ever called a woman a bitch outside of a song, and I don't think he ever will. I think he's too respectful and a nice boy for that. And I just find that there's that genuine disconnect between how I feel J. Cole is as a person versus what he says on his songs. That does not mean he's a bad technician or a bad rapper. He is very technically sound. He is very good, has very good pen game. I just find him somehow kind of corny. I mean, there's some songs on that. I try to, dude. People say that 2014 Forest Hills Drive is one of the greatest rap albums of all time. I listen to it and there's so many cheesy songs on there. The song where I mean I don't even want to get into it, but the song where he's talking about touching himself is makes my skin crawl how cringe it is. And the bowing out of the battle thing, I didn't even really consider that in this. I just I also find his production choices really boring. Every song sounds like a J. Cole song. And again, his production is nice, but I basically think that he's been making the same kind of songs for 10, 15, 20 years. It's time for some experimentation. He just isn't willing to do that. He is a great for a stellar feature for sure, and excluding Grippy, but I think that J. Cole is incredibly technical and skilled rapper, but he just doesn't do it for me, and that's why he's as low as he is. Next up is Aesop Rock. Aesop Rock is obviously probably one of the greatest writers of all time. And if you want to consider him a technician, just because of great rhyme schemes, he comes up with these concepts and sticks to them in such a satisfying way just to listen. It's kind of like whatever challenge rap. Like I'm gonna rap an entire song about. His latest one was, I'm gonna rap a whole entire song about construction vehicles, and that's going to be the whole rap. It's going to be the construction vehicle rap, and it's going to sound badass. And I'm going to rhyme with a million words that you've never heard before. Obviously, there was that study where who's the greatest rapper as far as the amount of different words used, and Aesop Rock cleared everyone by quite a bit. Obviously, very incredibly intelligent, incredibly good technician. Why isn't he higher would be the question. I do find his voice to get kind of samey after a while. He does kind of repeat and recycle a lot of the flows that he uses. He does that all in service of an amazing writing and pin game, and does some crazy technical, like I don't know what you want to call it, but just like he's multi-syllabic rhymes, jumping around verses, rhyming things with verses, jumping down lines, really outside of the box rhyme creation and structure to his verses, and all that's great, but that comes with some drawbacks. He's like the guy in sports who's like just really really good at that one thing, and he's so good he made himself to be one of the greatest ever at that thing, and that's why we have to include him in this conversation. A little bit of diversity would be great. I also will give him credit. The dude does a ton of features and jumps on a whole bunch of different types of production, and his shtick, his whole thing works well on a bunch of different production styles, and I got to give him credit for that. I just find the voice and the flow kind of samey, and that's why he can't be higher. But I love Aesop Rock, and I can't stand a whole album of Aesop Rock, but I'll listen to 3 or 4 tracks of Aesop Rock, and I'll be like, damn, this guy is amazing. Next up is Tyler. He's another, I would say he's a younger artist, but he isn't really a younger artist anymore. But I think there's plenty of creative juice still left in there. He's created so many different products. Probably you could call it a product, I guess, but so many different projects. He inhabits a different persona for every project he creates, and it's just led to some of the most interesting moments in hip hop. And he's really he first of all he does a lot of own his production, which shouldn't necessarily um, be involved or be in consideration for a list like this, but you got to give the guys who produce their own stuff a couple extra bonus points. And Tyler is creates all these personas, and he's really matured over time. Obviously, a lot of that cringe, or not a cringe, but like kind of that shock stuff that he was doing early in his career, um, while got him a lot of notoriety, he's kind of gotten rid of a lot of that. His tracks are full of bravado, a lot of bragging, a lot of talking about how he's the shit. And I believe him. I do think that Tyler is the shit. And I really like Don't Tap the Glass. I like his melodic stuff, although maybe that shouldn't be considered in something like this. But I like that he's not afraid to experiment, and I like the fact that he's still willing to be goofy. He's willing to be serious, and I think one of the reasons I put him here, and I think that he will end up higher, is I just think there's a lot more creative juice left in there, and I think he's still not done wowing hip hop fans for years to come. Next up is Nikki. Nikki is kind of one of those cases where it's like, oh, what could have been? When she burst on the scene, she had amazing potential, so much technical ability, and just like she does kind of fall back into some of those female rap tropes where she's rapping a lot about sex and her body and how appealing to men but she kind of came at it at a different way. She was definitely kind of the owner of her femininity as opposed to someone who was being used for their femininity. She had enveloped the girl boss kind of persona. She had amazing mixtapes. Her features are legendary, and she had a couple great albums too. Um, this she just kind of flamed out. There's lots of rumors as to why she flamed out. The project's definitely lost cohesion, skill. The production got worse. Um, just kind of a general downhill turn. A lot of people kind of lament that Nicki kind of was the chosen one. She should have been the best female rapper of all time. And if she kind of would have continued the arc that she was on early in her career, she could have made it there. But unfortunately, a star that burned too bright, I guess you could say. But obviously a great technician. I think that's one of the things that, and a lot of flows. She wasn't afraid to be funny, and she wasn't afraid to be left field, just a character, right? And it's too bad that she never kind of lived up to her full potential, but she still makes it on the list of one of the greatest rappers of all time. Definitely in probably the top five of the greatest female rappers of all time. And it's just a unique voice that I wish would come back. I wish Nicki had a few more bangers to drop on us. That would be nice. Next up is Freddie Gibbs. Freddie Gibbs is, the mafioso rap, continue that tradition that was set up for East Coast rappers. Kind of, it's not a clear distinction, but LA rap kind of had the gangster rap lineage, and the East Coast rappers had the mafioso rap lineage. Although, Freddie is from Indiana, so I guess he's not a true East Coast out of Midwestern, but he definitely is kind of mafioso rap, coke rap, but that's a huge technician, a great writer, more of a low key kind of guy, but definitely the skills unmatched. He has charisma, does amazing collaborations with different producers, from Alfredo to Pinata, and it really shows that he's a monster. He's hard to deal with, and he took a lot of these kind of independent rap projects that you would kind of from Pinata to Alfredo 2, these kind of projects that wouldn't get a lot of buzz, the kind of kind of rap nerd projects, and he brought a lot of publicity and shine to him, and that's mostly driven by Freddie's ability to just rap charismatically, just smooth, and just skilled. Next up is Drake, obviously a huge figure in hip hop. Um, what do you do with Drake on a list like this, right? Obviously, he's the most listened to rapper of all time. Maybe Bad Buddy will beat him one day there because he's kind of on a crazy trajectory himself. But hugely influential, dominated the rap conversation for the last 20 years. Even if you talk about the beef and talk about how Kendrick won it, you don't get a beef that big without the biggest rapper of all time being involved in it. I know that may hurt people's feelings to say he's the biggest rapper of all time. That's a numerical evaluation. I'm not, giving him his shine, but you have to. And he is talented. A lot of the problems with Drake, obviously come from the fact that, I guess we could start with the ghostwriting. He's rumored to have had a ton of help with rhymes, with hooks, with everything. There's lots of reference tracks out there that'll let you know that he's definitely had help at some level. How much level, it's unclear. He would probably be off this list or even lower, like past the 50s. The Iceman album, while not the most amazing Drake project of all time, still shows that he has it. He's still able to pick beats. He's still able to get on a banger. He's still able to move the crowd. He still has all the eyeballs on him. Despite, you could say that Kendrick or whoever, Bad Bunny or whoever is the true star of hip hop now, that Drake has been eclipsed. You can't avoid that so many eyeballs are on him. He's kicked off a lot of trends. I don't know how serious the Drake stimulus package is, but a lot of those rappers that he collaborated with, their biggest song of all time was a Drake collab, and you can't really ignore that. He's not talented. If you're reading this, it's too late. What's the other one? Without getting bogged down. The one before that, he showed a lot of talent, depth, and so he's not just someone to be scoffed at. While his newer projects are not certainly as good as his last ones, and he has these kind of self-inflicted owies, like whatever, the Poppy song off of Some Sexy Songs for You, which is like unintentionally hilarious, or is it intentionally hilarious? Like sometimes it seems like he's on the joke, like he doesn't release Juan Juan Delilah without knowing that that is a terrible song. So he's a interesting character. The crypto stuff and like the gambling stuff with kids is bad. The suing someone, like he had so much potential to be higher, but suing people over a beef. I know Drake fans will argue with you and saying he's suing the label, and somehow that's different from suing Kendrick, but he lost a beef and he ended up suing someone. Like, I don't know how you can say like, oh well, it's just seems like sour grapes, dude. It's like, I don't know, but that's kind of his persona now, is he's Mr. Sour Grapes. I don't know. It's tough to get your head around him, but he's definitely one of the biggest rappers of all time who isn't untalented. Like if he was just a terrible rapper, like if he was a Vanilla Ice type figure, like if Vanilla Ice had a long career, I guess, then you would be easy to leave him off this list. But you also got to give him some props for being technical and bringing lyricism, or not lyricism, but bringing melodic sounds to the forefront. He did kick off some trends. I don't know. It's tough to know what to do with Drake. He's conflicted. I put him here, um, and that's where he is. Next up is Prodigy from Mobb Deep. I don't rate Mobb Deep as highly as a lot of people do. People love Mobb Deep. I guess it's because I'm not an East Coast guy, so it just doesn't impact. The sound doesn't hit me the way that a lot of guys do. He kind of sounds like a lot of East Coast production from that era. Prodigy is a great rapper. I just don't find him as exceptional as a lot of people do. I have kind of another guy who he's tied to a lot, much higher than him, because I find him much more charismatic. But Prodigy is a great technician, great at selling street tales, a great storyteller. Just very good at embodying that East Coast boom bap style of braggadocio rap. He's kind of the personification of that East Coast style, and I give him a lot of props. I mean, obviously Mobb Deep is a great act, and Prodigy is the reason. This is the main reason why. I mean, I guess the production's amazing too, but you got to give Prodigy his flowers, and rest in peace for this man as well. Next up is Slick Rick. I also rate Slick Rick lower than a lot of people would, although he's another really polarizing guy. Some people rate him super highly, some rate him super lowly. I put him here. Obviously, he gets a lot of props for Children's Story, one of the greatest hip hop songs of all time. I mean, and that kind of showed how central storytelling could be to hip hop. He created an entire narrative. He was talking about a lot of things that is still relevant today. And that song gives him a lot of props. He is a great storyteller. He is charismatic on the mic. I just don't find his music to age as well as a lot of other of his contemporaries. There's a lot of contemporaries that came up on the same time who are kind of on that forefathers of hip hop train, that I think whose music aged better. If you listen to a lot of Slick Rick's old albums, if you don't know what I'm talking about, if you just kind of have this like pantheon version of Slick Rick in your head, go listen to some of his old albums. Listen to the less streamed tracks on there, and there's some rough spots. So I can't give him as much love as a lot of people do, but obviously a great storyteller, a huge figure in the beginning of rap, and in his later career too, he's hopped on some tracks for some features and done well. So he's shown he's able to update his sound and sound, not sound unmatched by more contemporary rappers, and you got to give him props for that too. Next up, we have at 42, Pharoah Monch. Truly a rapper's rapper. Kind of one of those guys that's flown under the radar. Mainstream, rap fans, especially newer ones, are not going to know who Pharoah Monch is, or probably may not know who Pharoah Monch is. But if you were around during his heyday, you know how influential and how big a figure he was. Supremely talented, great with rhyme structure, rhyme scheme, technicality, writing, and also not afraid to be political, to speak out about social injustice, but also keeping it light, willing to be funny. Just a great package and a unique individual. If you're not too familiar with him, go listen to Infernal Affairs, go listen to PTSD, and just see his unique blend of being political, being whimsical, and just great skill overall. Pharoah Monch, if any rappers, if they ever listen to their top 10 rapper lists, or if they have them, Pharoah Monch is going to be on there more often than not. He's our two rappers rapper. Next up is Big Boy. Big Boy is an interesting figure because he's obviously an outcast, and just when you're in a group with Andre 3000, how do you stand out? He kind of plays the straight man. Any great, comedy duo has the straight man and has the jokester. He kind of plays the straight man to Andre 3000's jokester. But Outcast, in my opinion, is the greatest rap group of all. Oh, well, there's Wu-Tang Clan, so I don't know what you do with that. Anyways, you got 1A and 1B. I don't want to parse that debate out right now. But Big Boy is no slouch himself. He has great charisma on the mic. Great storyteller. While he may not be the most technically gifted, he will change up his flows and does a great storyteller, great charisma, and great chemistry with Andre. And Outkast would not be as explosive as it was without both halves of Big Boy and Andre 3000. Next up, we got Pusha T. Pusha T is an amazing artist. Great collaborations, obviously with the Clips. Great solo projects. Even work with Kanye West like Daytona. He's collaborated with a lot, worked with a lot of different producers. Kind of the new archetype of coke rap, and it's kind of the king of coke rap, I guess you could say. And I think that he does everything well. He's a good storyteller. He's good technically. He's a good writer. He's charismatic. He picks good production choices from working with Pharrell. Like he has an ear for good beats, for good hooks. He's just really a complete rapper. On top of being very good at a particular style of rap, Pusha T definitely deserves love for what he delivers to the game. Even in his older age, he's still dropping bangers with his brother. So you gotta love Pusha. Next up is Killer Mike. Killer Mike is an amazing figure. I mean the work alone with Run the Jewels is amazing. And you listen to any Run the Jewels song, and all love to LP, and especially his production. But he's a great rapper too. But Killer Mike, it's like when he hops on those LP productions. I mean, it's just he just owns it. He's so charismatic. He's got so much bravado. He talks and you want to listen. He sounds great. He'll change up his flow. He sounds good on a bunch of different styles of production, from his earlier work with Outkast, to his solo work, to the Run the Jewels stuff. And I think he's just a great figure in hip hop. I love listening to him. I love listening to Run the Jewels. Hopefully we'll get another project from them eventually. But he also has come up with good solo projects recently too, including the late Grammy win. So all props to Killer Mike. Royce 5'9", that's a true technician in the game. Another one of these guys that's a rapper's rapper. I don't. It's kind of funny because you listen. There's obviously the rapper guys, right? The guys who are just really technically skilled, really good writers, guys who may have not have ever had the kind of commercial success that you would hope for people that's talented. But I just find Royce 5'9", he gets a lot of love, but I feel like he doesn't get enough. Like you go listen to his albums, and he's really good at just delivering a complete album. Like there's very rarely any skips. Obviously, he's very much himself. I'm not going to say that he has the most varied track list, or a ton of experimentation. But if you're just looking for a technically sound rapper who's going to deliver crisp bars, good flows, good rhyme schemes, good verse construction, good storytelling. Royce is definitely one of those guys that is just very technically gifted, technically sound, great pin game, and sounds great on the mic. Next up is Lauryn Hill. It's hard to know what to do with Lauryn Hill too. I mean, a lot of lists have her much higher than this. It's hard to rate her much higher than this when you have basically two albums, and one's a group album and one's mostly a melodic album. Like the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, it may be one of the greatest albums, top 10 album of all time. But she's not rapping on most of it, or not. She's singing on most of it. But when she chooses to lay down bars, obviously hugely talented. And I mean, the way for her these kind of hybrid tracks where she's doing a lot of R&B singing and then going into bars and then going back into these amazing R&B hooks, are show a huge range, a huge talent, just those a talent that was never fully realized. And it's unfortunate, obviously between her and Nicki, you kind of say, well, one of these two women could have been the greatest female rapper of all time. And in Lauren's case, I mean, shoot, you give her 3 or 4 more albums, she could have maybe been a top 10 rapper just of all time, regardless of gender. But we just didn't get it. She walked away from music entirely for many years, dealing with mental health stuff and just dealing with the pressures of fame stuff. And so it's understandable. You got to take care of yourself first. But what's another one of those what could have been, but obviously hugely talented from what the bars we did get, of a legendary figure in hip hop. Next up, we have Danny Brown. So here's going to be one of my most unconventional picks. Maybe the first head scratcher, or I don't know, probably people scratching their heads at some of my early picks in this list. But this is going to be someone I rate very highly that a lot of people may not. Um, it's kind of interesting because his last album I wasn't a huge fan of. I think it's really easy to say that because I don't think there was probably anybody who was a huge fan of the entirety of his last album because there was so much different stuff on that album. Um, but dude, the guy's experimentation range is amazing. And Atrocity Exhibition is a top 10 hip hop album of all time for me. I mean, from front to back, there is not a skip on that album. It is a complete album. It tells a story. It is cohesive. I mean, the band who made Atrocity Exhibition has to be a top 50 rapper of all time, in my opinion. Plus, he's done so many different features, and he's very rarely washed. He's very unique, but very, very rarely washed. Scaring the Hose. I mean, as much as Peggy's production on that was unhinged, I feel like part of that album was just let me see what Danny can rap on. Let me make the most unhinged, unorthodox, weird beat I can and see what Danny can do on it. And Danny lived up to the challenge every time. The dude can flow on anything. You could flow anything this man's way, and he would find a pocket to get on. Plus, he's a great rapper, very conceptual, experimental, very unique. I just love the guy, and he deserves all the success. I hope he has more great albums. I hope he keeps experimenting, even though his last album wasn't my favorite. I think that I would never want Danny to stop experimenting, even though that creates some albums that I may not be in love with. So here's a very unorthodox pick. I'm sure a lot of people wouldn't have him here. This is my list, damn it, and Danny Brown is 36. So next up we have Big Daddy Kane. I don't rate him as highly as a lot of people do. He's definitely one of the forefathers of hip hop. I just don't find him as revolutionary as some others that you'll see later. But I definitely give Big Daddy Kane all the props in the world. He was definitely one of the people who was instrumental on bringing hip hop to the next level. He definitely brought a sense of swagger and flair to hip hop. Run DMC started with that kind of flair, but he definitely became that kind of aspirational hip hop figure. LL Cool J came, not too soon after, but he kind of became the first face of hip hop as far as someone who was like, he's cool, he has swagger. He made braggadocio a big part of his rhymes, and he doesn't let everyone knew that he was the shit and that you basically had to deal with him. Huge figure in kind of the look of hip hop, and he was no slouch technically either. Obviously, the time he's coming from, um, hip hop sounded different. There was definitely a seed change or a sound change that was happening at the time, and he was kind of in the middle of that. So his sound may sound a little more dated. Like I said, I don't find him as kind of revolutionary as some of the other forefathers of hip hop, but Big Daddy Kane definitely deserves his props for creating this kind of swagger that kind of hip hop has always fed off of since. Next up is Guru. This is the kind of guy I was talking about with kind of lumped in with Prodigy as being a member of a East Coast hip hop duo that kind of was so big, with Guru being a part of Gangstar, and you just can't. The reason I love Guru so much is because I think he's such a compelling figure on the mic. He has such personality. He's so easy to connect with. Um, his rhymes, while not being the most technically gifted rapper of all time, he's a great storyteller. And like I said, I love the sound of his voice. I love the sounds of the songs. I love the sound that Gangstar created together. And I think that he's definitely kind of underrated in the fact that He just encapsulates that East Coast sound so perfectly. He sounds so good on East Coast beats, and I think that he deserves all the props. He's definitely one of my favorites of these kind of East Coast hip hop duos. And every time I listen to a Gangstar track, I'm just like, God damn, Guru sounds great on this track. Next up is Lupe Fiasco. Um, Lupe Fiasco, I kind of feel like a pretender putting him here because I'm not a huge Lupe fan, but I cannot deny the man's technical talent. Part of my issues with Lupe is because I just don't find his production choices very interesting a lot of the time, and he kind of takes up so much space in the track that I don't know. I just don't find it as compelling as I find that a lot of hip hop. There's this interplay between the music, the instrumental portion, and the rapper, and this balance, and I kind of feel like Lupe kind of upends that and kind of becomes the dominant figure in the sound. And obviously hugely technically gifted. Flow switch ups, the writing top tier. Lyricism, verse construction, rhyme schemes, all that kind of A, B, C, jumping up and down on that rhyme scheme scale throughout a verse, throughout a song, is untouchable. And he's also a great storyteller. He's also not afraid to speak out on political issues and speak his mind. He's kind of he's kind of gotten in trouble. Obviously, he may have been so much bigger. His career may have been so much bigger if he wasn't afraid, or if he was afraid to speak his mind. Um, Again, I think that Lupe is a hugely talented rapper. His albums are amazing and his writing is amazing. I just don't find, his songs as a song to be as compelling as a lot of other people on this list. Um, but I can certainly listen to a Lupe song, listen to what he's saying, and have my mouth agape at how skilled he is, especially as a writer. Next up is Inspector Deck, another Wu Tang member. The Wu Tang members are going to be coming furious here, so be prepared for a top 30 that's peppered with Wu Tang. Inspector Deck obviously has some of the greatest verses that have ever been put to a verse. A lot of people may consider his verse on Triumph to be the greatest rap verse of all time, and it's not because of like the technical ability of it. It's so poetic and like it's kind of rides that perfect line between being metaphorical and being kind of open-ended like good poetry, while also just being so just jaw-dropping. You can just hear the talent, you can hear the rhymes, you can hear the writing ability, and just Inspector Deck is constantly dropping amazing tracks, amazing verses. Like every Inspector Deck verse is a great verse. It's just unfortunate that Inspector Deck was never able to release a solo album of the same quality that a lot of his other peers within Wu Tang were able to drop, and that's kind of why he gets pushed to the back. But if you're just going for like the peaks, the highest peaks of all time, Inspector Deck has hit some of the highest peaks in hip hop ever, and those just verses alone, put him in the upper pantheon of rappers of all time. Next up, we're going to go with Common. I'm not as big a Common fan as a lot of people are. Um, I don't want to be too negative because obviously these are my considerations for the greatest rappers of all time. So, and Common is rated number 31. So, right, it's not like I'm saying, oh, Common sucks. So I don't want to pepper his moments here with negativity. But Common is just doesn't do it for me as much of a. I kind of feel like he's kind of like the Kmart or Walmart or Target of lyrical rappers. He's kind of not a lot of rough edges, very low friction rapper. Obviously, hugely talented, great writer, storyteller, technician, overflows. I do find his production choices kind of boring, although he does have some bangers. Go is obviously amazing, but I find him to be kind of bland for a lyrical rapper. I like to for my lyrical rappers to have a little edge or kind of things that make him unique. And I maybe, and as Common is a tad too frictionless for me, a tad too perfect as a lyrical rapper, as like the kind of poster child for an underground lyrical rapper who's socially conscious. And I don't know, it just doesn't do it for me. So as much as I value Common and I think he's made great songs and great projects too. I just don't listen to them very much. I give him his props, but just not for me. Next up is Snoop Dogg. I rate him far lower than a lot of people. And the funny thing about this is Snoop Dogg was one of the first rappers I got into. You know what I mean? Like Dr. Dre, when the Chronic dropped, I mean, literally the hip hop world was put on notice. Like the Chronic was huge. I mean, a Southern California kid, so obviously it even was more relevant to me. I don't know if it had the same impact on the East Coast for even little white boys my age, but damn, dude, when the Chronic dropped, it was all you would just hear it everywhere. And me and my buddy in middle school, we would take turns rapping. He would always be Dr. Dre, I would always be Snoop Dogg, and we memorized the songs on the Chronic. So I'm not a Snoop Dogg hater, that's for sure. The reason he's so low is because he's obviously not the greatest writer, not the greatest technician. Um, Charismatic on the mic, definitely so unique, that just so laid back. That kind of almost half melodic delivery made him such a standout at the time. His gangster lyrics were huge. Obviously, a lot of the stuff on Doggy Style or whatever you can say didn't age well. Obviously, not someone who's been political. As he's gotten older, he's entered all sorts of questionable arenas in the service of making money. He's also done a huge amount for charity too. So he's a very interesting figure. He's definitely kind of on that Shaq thing where he'll plaster his face on anything for advertising and make a buck. But he's also done a lot of good in the community. Is that proportionate? Has he done enough? I can't say. I'm not going to be the arbiter of whether Snoop Dogg has done enough with his money. But I will say that he was hugely influential in my hip hop journey, and obviously hugely talented, hugely unique. But just obviously not a writer or a lyricist of the same level of the guys we're talking about in this upper echelon. So I can't rate him higher, even though I love Snoop Dogg. Now here is a pocket pick, you could say, is someone who's not going to be on probably too many people's lists of top 50, but someone who is hugely influential on my hip hop journey, and someone who I think is hugely underrated. I don't know if he's just a West Coast phenomenon, but Gift of Gab, obviously one half of Black Alicious. I think one of those rappers who's just so well rounded. I mean, he literally hits all the bases for me. I mean, hugely charismatic on the mic, great voice. The projects he does with Black Alicious, Chief XL's production, he meshes great with it. So, a lot of, kind of classic 60s soul sample kind of chops. But he sounds great on him. There's still some spacey stuff and some synth stuff. He's not afraid to get down on some different type of beats. He has a fast flow. He has a quick flow. He has a mellow flow. He has a melodic flow. Just huge variation in flows. Great writing, great storyteller. Um, his life was cut short. I mean, this one really hurts. It's so sad that Gift of Gab is no longer with us. But just man, dude could rap. Dude was so talented. Blazing Arrow, 2002 was really where listening to Blazing Arrow for the first time really turned me on to underground backpack rap. Um, Really showed me kind of, a lot of people's kind of on road to backpack rap or the underground scene or indie rap or whatever you want to call it is MF Doom. I got to Gift of Gab first, and I was blown away by Blazing Arrow, blown away by this man's talent, charisma, writing, everything. I was like, this is something different. This is amazing. He stayed on the positive tip too. He wasn't rapping about shooting people. He rapped about social justice too. He wasn't afraid to get political, but he wasn't talking about shooting people or doing drugs. But he still managed to fill up a whole album with poignance. Just truly an underrated rapper. Go listen to Blazing Arrow. Gift of Gab will blow your mind if you give him a chance. Now here is my top-rated female rapper of all time, and it's kind of weird to put Missy Elliott there because quite obviously Missy Elliott is not a huge technician, not a huge lyricist, but man, could Missy put down a hook. Man, could Missy flow on a beat. Those Timberland beats were great, and Missy sounded perfect for them. She's great because she's such a unique personality at the time. I mean, I'm not going to take anything away from the skills of these ladies, but you had like Foxy Brown and Little Kim and people like this who who were definitely choosing a lane to get famous, right? They were definitely picking a part of their personality was definitely exposed, and Missy Elliott didn't look like them. She didn't sound like them. Um, it definitely showed you that there was a different lane available for female artists in hip hop, and she inhabited that lane. She made so many hits, so many great albums, so versatile. Again, not the greatest technician, probably not the greatest writer of all time, but because of her place as she deserves to be the greatest female rapper of all time. And there's plenty of room. She can be unseated, but she definitely deserves her spot in the top 50 regardless, just because of such a central figure she was, how unique she was, and how she showed that there was all sorts of way for female artists to get big. And just mad props to Missy. And next up, you have Cool G Rap, the beginner, the originator of mafioso rap. Kind of proved that to be a gangster, to be a mafioso, to be a don, you don't have to not be a great writer, a great lyricist, a great technician. He was one of the forefathers again of rap, and he kind of created his own lane. He created a long legacy of other mafioso style rappers, from Freddie Gibbs to Pusha T to even Nas at times, Biggie and Big L, Mobb Deep. All of these kind of follow the lineage of mafioso rap, and Cool G Rap, while kind of credited as the godfather of mafioso rap, also was a huge technician, a huge innovator, a great storyteller, a great lyricist, and pushed the genre forward, pushed gangster rap forward, created a lane where gangster rap could be complex, could be interesting, could be diverse. So Cool G Rap definitely is one of the forefathers who also gets a lot of respect. Next up, we got Raekwon, also considered the mafioso rap member of Wu Tang, although you could say that about Ghostface and all the guys at times. But Raekwon, he came to gangster, street poet, storyteller, shows again that street life does not need you don't have to street life can be uh, communicated in an intelligent, insightful, thoughtful way, a reflective way. The main members or the core members of Wu Tang, the guys who are considered real lyricists, Raekwon is definitely up there with them. Um, Only Built for Cuban Links is one of the greatest for hip hop albums of all time. Him and Ghostface tear that album up. And Raekwon is definitely one of the greatest members of Wu Tang, and he's definitely kind of the mafioso member of the group. And we'll definitely see more members coming up. Next up, Redman, also another originator. He's had a very long career, even though kind of later in his career he got big with some pop hits, obviously with Christina Aguilera, but he really kind of originated the idea of horrorcore, at least popularized it. I'm not going to give him the originator of horrorcore, but he definitely popularized it. Definitely Eminem kind of tapped into some of those things, uh, horror motifs, really out there, outlandish bars, a lot of over the top violence. You can think of like the Misfits and Punk, like very kind of over the top, um, things, a lot of hyperbole, a lot of shocking imagery. And Redman is just a straight lyricist, another one of those rappers that can always give a lot of respect from people who know the craft well. Obviously, he had some great hits, some club bangers. Also, wasn't afraid to be funny. Obviously, had some blackout collaboration with Meth. He kind of did a lot of different things. He kind of started off in that horrorcore vein and then kind of jumped around into a lot of different tracks. But he's always a great lyricist, good storyteller, very technical, lots of different flows, lots of different personas that he can inhabit, and Redman is one of the greatest. Now, here's a very complicated figure, Kanye West. It's hard to know what to do with him on a rap list, much like it is with Drake, for lots of different reasons. Again, he's one of those guys who gets accused of using a lot of ghostwriters throughout his career, how much it's impossible to stay. And with Kanye West, it's especially complicated because there is probably no doubt that he has one of the greatest hip hop, if not the greatest hip hop catalog of all time, for everything from his first college dropout all the way, to Yeezus. I mean, even beyond that, like 444, Life of Pablo. I mean, the guy's career, just so many huge albums, like 808s and Heartbreak, such a transformative album. My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. Like these albums are huge. I don't I don't have Kanye listed as high as some others because I did always find his rapping a bit suspect, even before all this ghostwriting stuff came out. His over sexualized bars sometimes make me cringe. I don't think they come naturally out of his mouth, or they aren't appealing coming out of his mouth. How about that? I can listen to Biggie do some sexualized bars, and even though Biggie is Biggie, I just buy it. But with Kanye, it's always been kind of creepy. He's always been an interesting figure, but you can't deny the catalog. You can't deny the hits. You can't deny the innovation, the influence. He was coming out of the shiny suit era. He kind of brought the backpack rap aesthetics to prominence. He obviously kind of pushed that away later, but he is a guy who has been such an originator. His production is amazing. Started so many trends, kind of changed the idea of what a big prominent rapper could be, and really he reached the highest echelons of rap. He obviously came upon disgrace. I don't knock him down too hard for that. Just mainly because I don't know that it's hard to know what to do with these kind of fallen from grace rappers like MJ. Like, what do you do with Michael Jackson and his catalog? Is it one of the greatest pop catalogs, if not the greatest pop? Just one of the greatest catalogs of all time? Sure. Did he turn out to be a creepy weirdo? Sure. Kanye also gives off a lot of that stuff. Um, he's not probably not a great guy. I'm glad he seems to have straightened his thing out, but he still has pending cases against him. Who knows how it's all going to shake out in the end with Kanye? But again, you can't deny what his 8, 9 album run where he was just putting out banger after banger. It's never been my favorite. Like I said, I've never been a huge fan of him as a rapper, but I can definitely enjoyed particular tracks of his, particular projects, and I can't deny the innovation, especially on the production side. Next up is probably when we go from someone who's been challenging technically, and then probably to one of the greatest technical rappers of all time, Big Pun. Um, Definitely rest in peace. He truly left a huge legacy. I mean, you go listen to Big Pun, his mastery over breath control, over speed, over cadence, over flow. I mean, he's just a straight technician. Maybe the most technical rapper who ever lived. And so unfortunately that his catalog was so short, he didn't have a chance to show all that he could do. But what he did leave us with, you could see that he was a master, especially at the technical aspects of hip hop. He was also a good rapper and storyteller and also charismatic on the mic. But where he really shone through was just his straight technical prowess. And I don't think anyone will ever be able to F with this dude as far as his technical power. And like I said, the only reason he isn't higher is just because his catalog is just so brief. Next up is Method Man. Method Man is kind of a tough one. It looks like I rate him higher than consensus, which is kind of surprising to me. But Method Man is kind of the first guy who really got me into lyricism, while you know, uh, Gift of Gab really was the first one that got me into independent and underground hip hop. Method Man was the first one to get me into lyricism, and he is kind of like the lyricist for dummies. Obviously, I've explored more lyricists, more complex lyricism since Method Man, but the way he layers in quick doubles and triples, and he's always connecting punchlines to each other. It was definitely like for someone who was just finding lyrical hip hop, who really started to listen to hip hop with Snoop and Dre, where we're talking about the most complex rhymes of all time. Listening to Method Man for the first time, especially to Cal, you listen to it and you start seeing all these doubles and triples and all these interesting references that tie into one another, and you start to see, wow, this lyricism thing could go to a whole nother level. Obviously, it can go to many level. I don't want to say many levels, but it can go a few levels even beyond what Meth does. But Meth is really like the lyricism for dummies rapper, and he's really the one who got me into lyricism, to analyzing lyrics, to breaking stuff down, to really seeing the connections, seeing what a triple was, seeing how things from different things, seeing callbacks, lyrical callbacks from one reference also calls back to a reference that was earlier in the song. Um, Obviously, just he really got me into hip hop, really got me into lyrical hip hop, and for that I'll always be grateful. And Meth is just such a charismatic individual, charismatic on the mic, such a personality. Obviously, had a lot of crossover appeal later in his career too. So props to Method Man. Next up is Chuck D. At 21, Chuck D is kind of the rapper that turned into a superstar that maybe shouldn't have been. Public Enemy became huge. Kind of bucking the trends that were going on at the time. You wouldn't think that a group that was so focused politically, kind of like, I don't know, like a Rage Against the Machine. It was a very politically focused group, very much about making hip hop about something, fighting against a lot of the trends at the time, whether it was gangster rap going into the shiny suit bling era. You know, Public Enemy was always against all of that. And they kept rap about something. They kept it political. They kept it as revolutionary music. They spoke out against, social injustice, racial injustice, and just problems that they were seeing. And Chuck D's authoritative voice always made their music sound very important. He had a gravitas to the way he spoke. Very plain spoken. You're not going to find like huge double triples throughout, Chuck D's rhymes or whatever. But his voice, the authority that he spoke with, made Public Enemy's music sound important. And you always got to give props to the rappers who continue to try to keep like a revolutionary spirit in their music. Next up, we got LL Cool J. A lot of people may have him higher. I mean, once you get into the top 20, right, it's kind of like waffling or equivocating as to, oh, this guy, that guy. I mean, you can place these guys are all great, right? These are the big ones of the big ones. I don't know, whatever you want to say, but LL Cool J, definitely rap's first superstar, if you want to put it that way. Became the face of hip hop. Obviously, he has the man has a pretty face. What can I say? He's a good looking dude. Ladies loved him. Obviously, it's in his name, and ladies love Cool James, and dudes wanted to be him. He looked badass. He had swagger, um, and his raps didn't have to be too serious. Obviously, with Mama Said's Knock You Out, he tried to show people that he wasn't just a good time party vibe guy. That he could be serious and drop down some bars too, and be intimidating. But for the most part, LL Cool J's technical abilities and you know were not as revolutionary as a lot of his contemporaries, but where he did come through was with his swagger, with his being iconic, with him having the big crossover early success, being marketable. You can argue whether that was a great thing for hip hop, but he was marketable. And LL Cool J, he definitely could rap too, man. And you can listen to a lot of his music and say it sounds dated, but at the time it was contemporary. He kept his flows varied. He continued to evolve with the production styles as they went through in the late '80s, early '90s. And LL Cool J is definitely a central figure in getting hip hop growing and where it is today. Next up is KRS-One. Obviously, KRS-One is one of the forefathers of rap. He was, with one other gentleman, very key into hip hop's progression. Rap, you can definitely call, if you're going to give these early guys names, you can call, LL Cool J the icon. You can call Cool G Rap the mafioso. Call Slick Rick the storyteller. KRS-One is the philosophizer. He was a man who kind of had seemed to speak with a bigger purpose. His rhymes seemed like they were written in tomes. There was always a mystique with KRS-One. He definitely gave off the impression that he was one that was not to be messed with. Definitely an instrumental in updating what hip hop could be about, making it about something, and definitely again showing that hip hop could be an intelligent art form, a poetic art form, a meaningful art form. Not to say that previous hip hop before this wasn't intelligent or meaningful, but kind of giving it more of an artistic flair, and definitely showing that hip hop was here to stay. Definitely had a part in making hip hop cementing its legacy going forward. And KRS-One, brought a lot of people who may have turned around their nose at hip hop at one time and made them think, well, maybe there is something to hip hop. Maybe there is something here that I would want to listen to. Maybe this is a more of an art form than I was ready to give it credit for. Next up is Lil Wayne, such a singular talent. I'm gonna, blow the call on myself or call out myself here. I'm not the hugest Lil Wayne fan of all time, but his talent is undeniable. Obviously, his pin game is wild. His delivery is wild. There isn't much about Lil Wayne that isn't wild. And his infamous talent of being able to conceptualize complex bars, complex rhyme schemes, complex verses, without writing any of it down. He just think about it, hop in the booth, drop the drop the verses, and pretty much blow people away. That this man could basically come up with some very complex rhyme schemes, some very complex verses off the top of his head. You could say that Lil Wayne, it has been said recently in some controversial interviews that Lil Wayne, never tried to become an important figure. He always kept it, hip hop and rap and stardom and money. He never tried to get too much deeper than that, which, is true to a certain extent, but his talent is undeniable. Many people consider him who grew up around his age, grew up when he was big, that, consider him GOAT status. I don't quite put him there. There's a lot of varied opinions on Lil Wayne, especially and now in the later part of his career, where he may or may not have some either substance abuse issues or just lingering substance use problems from his past that seem to have caught up with him. His last album was pretty bad. I think that I've heard a lot of opinions basically that say, oh, well, wasn't great, but there was a couple of songs on that. In my personal opinion, it was terrible. That was a terrible album. It was embarrassing, really. But with the Carter 3, the Carter 4, you can definitely say that, Lil Wayne had huge highs, hugely influential. A lot of people look to as, while his his song concepts were not the most complex, just the way he matched triples and rhyme schemes and kind of did a lot of those more complex dynamics in his verses, supposedly without writing any of them down. You got to give Lil Wayne credit, and he took over all the space in hip hop for a while there. Next up is DMX. A lot of people consider him to be, the goat of live rap performance. The man had boundless energy, and he definitely was. He was DMX was a very complex figure. There's another rapper who we'll talk about later who was also a complex figure, but he encapsulated so many different things, but it just shows how complex a person can be. He was a tough guy, a gangster. He obviously had the tough facade, but so many of his songs were personal. So many of his songs were deep and revealing. He talked abundantly about his many problems, obviously with substance abuse and other mental health struggles that he had. He was such a complex figure and such a dynamic rapper. Obviously, does his unique voice, his unique style, his aggressive in your face, but while still dropping complex rhymes, still with changing up flows, always with DMX's voice, but changing it up enough to keep people interested, to keep people talking. So many bangers. You drop DMX songs in the club to this day, I'm sure people are going to be dancing because he just had such an electric charisma on the mic. And, another rest in peace. And DMX is certainly one of the best of all time to do it. Next up is Ghostface, my second to last member from Wu-Tang on here. A lot of people consider Ghostface to be the goat of Wu-Tang. I have someone just shortly a little bit higher, but Ghostface is a huge storyteller, obviously an amazing wordsmith and storyteller, and just someone who can intricately weave like these narratives, but still with such complex wordplay and technical abilities. It really just shows you how talented you can be, while not seeming like Ghostface can drop these complex bars and these complex stories, keep it all so tightly wrapped you don't even notice how good he is. And then you have Supreme Clientele, only built for Cuban links. Obviously, his work with Wu Tang, just great, solo albums, great work on Wu Tang albums, great work with Raekwon. You can't mess with Ghostface Killer. You can't mess with his skills. I just like another Wu Tang member slightly better, but most people consider Ghostface, the Wu Tang goat, and I would not necessarily argue with you. He is truly an amazing wordsmith, and he just makes it all seem smooth and effortless. Next up is Mos Def, Yasin Bey. Um, I love Mos Def. I mean, I think that he's severely underrated. If you look at the consensus ranking, he's not too underrated compared to where I put him, but I don't hear him talked a lot about in goat conversations. He always kind of seems like an auxiliary figure. Like, here's the core guys, the best, and then you got, well, whatever. I'm not going to go through the list, but Yasin Bey is always on the outside of that core, best of all time. But the dude should get his props. I mean, Black on Both Sides is an amazing album. His work with Black Star, Talib Kweli, just amazing work. Just so complex, so political, but so smooth and effortless. Has such charisma, such a smoothness on the mic. Again, one of these guys that can be dropping some complex technical bars, and you would never notice because he seems so unbothered. And is this kind of that contradiction? He has this kind of laid back delivery and flow, but while talking about such serious issues, and again, like these kind of revolutionary figures in hip hop, they're definitely important. Yasin Bey definitely deserves all the props. You listen to him, and he always stands out. He's a unique voice, but and he's always so talented. Definitely someone worthy to pay attention to. Definitely check out Black on Both Sides, amongst all of his other hip hop albums. He's just a true talent. Next up, the Jizza. So here's my Wu Tang goat. Um, I don't know. I don't know what it is about Jizza. I know that a lot of people, would probably put him behind Meth, Raekwon, and Ghostface. I love Jizza. Whenever I listen to a hip hop song or whenever I listen to a Wu Tang song since the very beginning, whenever most of the time when I hear a verse, I'm like, which one was that? When I first started to listen to Wu Tang, who was that? Who was that? And I try to go dig and figure out which one before I could distinctly tell each of their voices. Whenever someone was dropping, the sickest bar in any given song, when I would go back and check it out, 9 times out of 10 it would be Jizza, and there's a reason for that. For whatever reason, I just vibe with his skill. Obviously, he's Jizza the genius. It's hugely intelligent bars. Always trying to be clever, always trying to come up with some, connections that you wouldn't necessarily think of, some doubles that fly under the radar. He is definitely um, a rapper you want to listen to the verse multiple times to kind of pull it apart to see what he's driving at. Jizza is considered the brain of the operation. Everyone, all of the members kind of have their part in the body of Wu Tang, and Jizza is definitely the brain of the operation. And I just for whatever reason, I know he's not considered the best at it for most people, but like I said, when I first started to listen to Wu Tang, whenever I'd stop the song, I'd be like, who was that? Which rapper was that? Before I could identify him, Jizza was the man who was dropping the bars that I paid the most attention to initially. Next up, we have Black Thought. Black Thought is the head of the Roots. Um, an amazing rapper, does so intelligent and cerebral. Again, a rapper that you want to listen to their bars multiple times to try to catch everything. Again, another rapper who just seems unbothered, does hugely technical, but you wouldn't notice it by listening to how he flows. He makes it look effortless. Um, Black Thought is also amazing for features. I mean, this guy has been on features for so many things. And then his collaboration with Danger Mouse does Cheat Codes, which is an amazing album to go listen to as well. But yeah, throughout the Roots projects, Black Thought is the voice of the Roots, and the Roots are a huge band, and that's because of Black Thought's um, thought-provoking lyrics, and his ability to be political, to basically rap about anything. And then, like I said about his features, I don't think Black Thought has ever been rapped on a feature. There may have been a few ties in that list of whenever he features on something with somebody, but I don't think he's ever been out rapped on anything. Truly a technician, this effortless, smooth, and cool. And yet, while still keeping it political, keeping rap about something, keeping rap thoughtful. All the props in the world of Black Thought. Next up, we got Q-Tip. Here's a rapper that I definitely don't think gets enough respect, especially considering a tribe's place in the pantheon of hip hop. I think earlier I said it was like Outkast and Wu Tang were definitely the top two hip hop groups of all time. I definitely, obviously, a tribe called Quest could also put their 2 cents in there as well. And I don't think like I said, I don't think Q-Tip gets enough credit for how amazing he is. I think it's because his personality and his style and his voice is not what we associated with hardcore rap. He kind of comes off as like more of a smooth guy, kind of a low key guy, not somebody who's demanding attention. But dude, the bars are amazing. The writing is amazing. The storytelling is amazing. Um, I know no no shade to Five Dog, especially as he's passed. But I mean, Q-Tip is the reason a tribe is what a tribe is, and it's all because he is so, first of all, unique, such a skilled technician, so smooth with the bars. and does the flows. I guess a flow technician. I guess I should highlight that his flows are unique. Just him rapping over that smooth jazz production. Also does most of the production himself. Another tip of the cap for that. But just over that jazz rap production, just so effortless and smooth, and just changing up flows, changing perspectives. Rapping circles around most people, and without people saying, oh, Q-Tip. Like you could see from the consensus ranking that, I'm not going to say people disrespect him, but A Tribe Called Quest is one of the greatest groups ever, and it's mainly around Q-Tip's talents. And give the man his due. I certainly do. I think that A Tribe Called Quest is amazing. I think Q-Tip is amazing, and just doesn't give enough credit for the skilled rapper that he is. Next up, we got Ice Cube. Just outside of the top 10 for Ice Cube. Another originator. I think one of the things about Ice Cube that I don't think he gets enough credit for is how ahead of the curve he was. He was doing a lot of the writing for a lot of the guys, especially early in NWA. And, the writing, then you might look back on an NWA track and be like, oh, well, it's kind of primitive. It's out of date. Yeah, that's considering it from a 2026 lens. But if you look at what rap was like gangster rap was at the time when NWA broke, it was like Ice-T. Just listen to an Ice-T record and go listen to what Ice Cube was doing with NWA. It sounds like a millennium apart, but they're only a year apart. No shade to Ice-T, but there was very much the old style of rap, very simple rhyme schemes, very, blah, 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 like keeping the same flows, rhyming, just very simple. And Ice Cube leveled up gangster rap, leveled up West Coast rap, and made it more complex. Started to bring in a lot of the, triples. Started to bring in more of the complex rhyme schemes. Just Ice Cube gets this, especially because he's done so much acting and stuff, and he's become kind of this, like Snoop is kind of become this post-rap figure. But he does not get enough credit for how much of an innovator he was at the time, and just how good he was when he was in his heyday. Next up, we got Busta. I had to put Busta in the top 10. A lot of people would not. I can't imagine not putting Busta Rhymes in the top 10. I would love to put him higher. Just the 9 guys I got ahead of him just slightly edge him out for various reasons. But Busta Rhymes is a freaking monster, man. Go listen to any Busta Rhymes track. He's unhinged in his delivery. The biggest knock you could have against Buster is maybe he doesn't have the most complex technical ability. I mean, technical ability as far as obviously breathing and all that kind of stuff, he's top tier. Writing, I guess you may not have the most top tier writing, but geez Louise, dude, any track that Buster's on, he's a monster. Going all the way back to A Tribe Called Quest. He was also a freestyle like battle warrior in New York back in the day. There's nothing funny than watching old ciphers of New York back in the day and seeing like Busta going up against ODB, like just madness, like those two just clashing in a freestyle battle. But yeah, Busta Rhymes is a monster on anything he touches. He may not. I mean, a lot of people would say, that he may not have like just that true classic. You could say When Disaster Strikes. I love Genesis. I own Genesis, so I bang that all the time. But dude, he does such skill, such talent, does such charisma, just the ability to take over the mic, make people listen. A unique figure too. When he dropped he was putting out like he took the shiny suit era and did it times a million and then added avant-garde art on top of it, and he just did it his own way, and it became such a unique character. And I just think Busta Rhymes does not give enough credit for how truly unique and how truly powerful he was on the mic, or he is on the mic. I mean, he's on path. So I love Busta Rhymes. I would love to put him higher. But just because that, the writing may not just be up there with the guys in front of him. So I got to dock him a little bit of that. But there's no reason. Busta Rhymes is a top 10 rapper of all time, in my opinion. Next up, we got Eminem. Eminem is a very interesting figure in hip hop, obviously, because of the color of his skin, amongst other things. But he obviously has a pin game, hugely technical, came up in battling. He has all the credentials you would want for a top tier rapper. But then you have this racial layer that gets thrown on top of it. It makes it all very complicated, especially being another white guy talking about him and where he ranks in the pantheon. It almost makes it's kind of one of those things like, do I have internal bias to liking his music more? The thing is, I can kind of absolve myself of that because I've never been the hugest Eminem fan. There was no doubt when the Slim Shady LP dropped and then the Marshall Mathers LP or EP or whatever. When those two albums dropped, he took over hip hop discourse. Um, a great writer. There's no doubt about it. I mean, he obviously hugely technical. He can rap fast. He also can rap about things. I don't think he gets, he's rapped in a lot of very personal things, sometimes too personal. Um, there's a lot of, he's a very complex figure in hip hop. It's hard to just, break him down in a minute. But I don't think anybody is going to deny his technical ability. I've heard a lot of people say, or not a lot of people, but I've heard it brought up a few times, that if the color of his skin was different, he would just be another Redman. That's Redman's a great rapper, by the way. But I guess the point of that comment would be that he wouldn't be considered on the same level he is if he was black. We can't make that assertion. He isn't black. He became hugely popular. He took over hip hop for a good portion of time. And there's no doubt he's technically talented. He's got the chops. He's got the writing ability. I mean, the term "stan" is in the dictionary or whatever. So you can't deny it. He was, a big superstar, and he was a technically gifted one at that. So you got to give him in the top 10, and I put him at 9. Next up is Tupac. Again, another person I'm going to have to call myself out on. I've never been a huge Tupac fan, but he's kind of returned into this kind of mythical messiah status. It's hard for me to knock him out of the top 10. He's definitely a skilled rapper, great flows, very personal. He kind of created this like I brought up with DMX, he kind of reminds me of DMX in a lot of ways. He's kind of he's a gangster figure. He's a tough guy figure, whatever you want to say, but also had a hugely personal side, hugely revealing, hugely willing to talk about himself. Also a great actor, very complex figure, right? A poet, and his delivery was, pastoral. He sounded like a preacher a lot of times on the mic. Even though he was originally from New York, when he came to the West Coast, he really inhabited the West Coast persona, took a lot of that, the G-funk sound, and but he also had like a lot of bars over like classic jazz too. Just a really complex, interesting figure, definitely talented, definitely was a larger than life figure, some revered by some as a deity in hip hop. I just never have personally connected with his music as strongly as others, but obviously between impact, influence, where he lands in West Coast hip hop, I definitely got to put him in the top 10. So I'm going to put him at number 8. All right, here's Jay-Z. Jay-Z is obviously a hugely gifted rapper. Um, I don't rate him as highly as a lot of other people do. I just don't find that, the people above him, I just don't find his technical ability and his writing ability up to snuff with the others. Plus, there, again, ghostwriting allegations with Jay-Z. How many, how much did he use? How much writing went on? Who knows? You know what I mean? It's hard. I'm not going to litigate that. Obviously, a huge rapper, some of the biggest rap albums of all time. And definitely for a rap superstar was definitely more technical than a lot of rap superstars. I mean, he comes from the New York tradition, rapped over a lot of boom bap beats, but also changed it up a lot. Rapping over Annie or giving a lot of the Rick Rubin production, with the guitars. He kept it unique. He kept it interesting. There's no doubt he had great charisma on the mic, great flows, a hit maker. Again, the writing may not be up there with quite some of the other guys that are coming up, but truly a huge figure in hip hop, one of the greatest to ever do it. If a lot of people put Jay-Z on there as their one, I couldn't argue with them because he was such a jack of all trades. But here, for myself personally, I put him at number 7. Next up is Andre 3000. I love Andre. It's kind of wild that on the consensus rankings he lands at 6 because I still feel like he's underrated. I have him at 6. The constant argument you hear against Andre is, oh, well, he never had a huge single album. And then, the closest thing we ever got to an Andre solo project was The Love Below. And even that was, 90% melodic cuts. So where does that leave Andre? Well, his work with Outkast shows you what he could do. And he could do everything. I mean, first of all, such a unique figure, such a unique voice. And as I had stated early on, I give a lot of props to people who are unique individuals in the landscape of hip hop, people who carved their own path. There's nobody like Andre 3000. There's no one who sounds like him. Although Baby Keem on his last project, there's a track where he does kind of sound like Andre. So, but regardless of that, uh, he's such a charismatic figure on the mic, and just dude, the storytelling and the triples and the doubles and the complex rhyme schemes and linking stuff back to what he had just said, and he just does it in his own unique way, and his flows, man, he doesn't get it. He changes up flows all the time. Doesn't get enough credit for that. I think it's easy to get lost because Andre does have a very distinct voice. So, he always sounds like Andre. He's not going to sound like anybody else. But if you look at what he's doing in his lyrics and his verses, um, she's constantly chopping it up and jumping around and pulling a rhyme from where you least expect it. And again, you can knock him because he never had that big solo album. But Andre showed us what he could do in Outcast, and he could do a lot. The man was an amazing artist. He still pops on for features from here and there, and he does that amazing as well. So mad props to Andre 3000, my number six. Now here we go. Here is the kind of the I don't know. You could call him if KRS-One is the philosophizer, you could call Rakim the prophet, man. Uh, hip hop would not sound like hip hop without Rakim. I mean, you could always talk about what it would look like if you remove this figure. How would things evolve? Maybe it would evolve the same way. But Rakim pushed that evolution forward in a huge way. From Eric B. and Rakim, paid in full through his solo projects. He truly took the very simple, simplistic call and repeat, simplistic rhymes, everything kind of laid out, basically the same flow. I mean, I don't know. I didn't without going analyzing it too deeply. Um, Almost all rappers use the same flow before Rakim. Everyone was just kind of stuck in the same way. Oh, this is how rap is delivered. Rakim said changed it. He changed flows. Just that ability to show that, hey, you could change flows. Hey, you could do multi-syllabic rhyme schemes. You could skip lines and mix them up, and they would still rhyme. It would still work. It would still be poetic. And he just pushed the genre so fast forward. Um, but when Paid in Full when came out, when Eric B and Rakim first started, it was 1987. 5 years later, you had Wu-Tang Clan dropping 36 Chambers. It's just how much evolution took place in that 5 years, and some of that was spawned on by other artists. I won't. I mean, we'd already talked about KRS-One. We already talked about Cool G Rap. I mean, obviously it was helped by other artists too, but Rakim was really the one who drove it forward. The only reason you could put him at five is because, and so as opposed to four, three, two, one. Am I going back a lot and listening to Rakim albums? I do listen to Eric B and Rakim albums sometimes, actually, but it does sound a little dated. Is that his fault? Heck no, dude. But he's number five, so I can't imagine people would think I'm disrespecting him here. Plus, I have him above the consensus ranking as well. He is truly the central figure in moving hip hop forward. There's someone else we'll talk about who also progressed it, but I don't even think that progression was as fast or as amazing as what Rakim did for his era. So next up we have Nas. I have him at number four. Most people would consider him number one. I just don't listen to Nas as much as I listen to my top three artists. So I'm going to put him at number four. He is on the Mount Rushmore, if that means anything to anybody. Obviously, that's a hugely talented rapper. He revolutionized again. He was like that further evolution while Rakim pushed it forward. Nas pushed it forward again with revolutionizing flow, rhyme scheme, and just this kind of layered storytelling. He putting in things of philosophy, just a few true like reflection of street life and how his life is, and just made you feel very cinematic, right? That's a word that I guess I should have used for another couple guys. Ghostface is another one where you just feel very cinematic. You feel like he could transport you to a place and a time and a feeling. And that's a really advanced writer. most, like I said, most people consider Nas their number one without being too negative, because obviously he's like a top four on my list, so I'm not gonna bash the guy, but you know, I do struggle with his production choices, and I do struggle with the fact that he does songs all found sound very samey. He's never been much of an experimenter. He's not going to push outside of his comfort zone, you know, which has worked out well for him. Obviously, huge talent. Just a reason I've never connected with him in the same way that I've connected with the guys who are above him. But you know, there's no denying Nas's talent. Go listen to Illmatic and just listen to the poetry, just the skills, the rhyming. There's no doubt that Nas is one of the greatest rappers to ever live, and you know, probably can't be touched in certain aspects of his abilities, and definitely deserves credit also as someone who pushed the art forward during the shiny suit era when things were starting to get stale. He definitely showed that lyricism could still dominate and still be compelling. And without a figure like him, do you get following figures like Jay-Z, etc. You know, mad props to Nas on my Mount Rushmore, but the three guys I have listed above him, I just like, you know, better personally, and people I've listened to way more than I've listened to Nas. So here we have MF Doom. You know, what can be said about MF Doom? You know, just truly took rap to the level of performance art, um, and just so much experimentation, innovation. Did a lot of his own production, but just willing to collaborate with so many different people, and just you just listen to any of his. You know, a lot of people. There's this kind of people that make fun of, you know, MF Doom and how he rhymes and how he's kind of very deliberate in the way he MF Dooms things. But dude, this endless skill. Tracks are so listenable. Just the doubles, the triples, like just MF Doom. You know those YouTube channels where they bring up huge verses and they highlight the different words that rhyme with other words that are calls to other words, and then by the end of the verse, it's just all highlighted because it all attaches to one another. Like those channels exist for MF Doom, and he does so much complex rhyming and storytelling, and just the different personas from King Ghidorah to MF Doom himself to Quasimodo. He just had um, so many different personas that he inhabited. And you know, Mad Villainy is one of the greatest, you know, rap records, if not one of the greatest records of all time. And just so great with collaboration. It's tragic that he was taken for us. Definitely carried, you know, basically was the inspiration for a million indie rappers and backpack rappers after him. He just inspired so many, just with his technical ability, just with his ability, his willingness to be weird and different and to try different things, all while always being himself, and just endless talent, endless charisma. What else can be said about MF Doom? Um, he's my third favorite rapper of all time. We're going from the underground to the mainstream. You have Notorious B.I.G., Biggie. Um, he's just charisma personified on the mic. When he raps, you want to listen to him. I don't know what else can be said about Biggie outside of that. Just pure charisma. Like, was he the most tactical rapper? Could you stack him up with Nas and you know, see go have them go bar for bar? Probably not, but it didn't matter because Biggie, he was just such a compelling rapper. He was undeniable. He was like a force of nature, and you know, his taken from us way too soon, but just delivered us some of the best hip hop albums of all time, some of the best hip hop tracks of all time. Um, just and just wild. Some of his bars are just so wild. You listen to something like "Kick in the Door," and just some of the bars he throws out there. Um, Out of any other rapper mouth may sound crazy or corny or stupid. Just Biggie makes you believe him. Biggie can make you believe anything. That's how charismatic and compelling he was on the mic. I just love listening to him, and he's such a fun figure. Unfortunately, you know, between him and Tupac, obviously the beef that kind of stained hip hop for a long time. But it's one of the greatest, most talented rappers of all time, and you know, it would have been amazing to hear him do more, but what he did do is just so compelling. He's my second greatest rapper of all time. Leaving number one. So now everyone can now who knows my number one is. So Everyone who thinks that Kendrick is overrated can go ahead and tune out. But if you want to, yeah, I can give you my arguments as to why I think Kendrick is the greatest rapper of all time to this point. I don't think Kendrick is unbeatable or infallible, but I just think he has the most compelling case to be the number one greatest rapper of all time. You talk about projects, starting with Overly Dedicated, Section 80, then you go into Good Kid, Mad City, then you go into T-Pab, then you go into Damn, then you go into Mr. Morale, and then you go into GNX. You can easily argue that from Section 80 on, everything he's dropped is a classic. I personally am not willing to put GNX there, but to maybe some people surprised they put Mr. Morale there. I think Mr. Morale is aging wonderfully, by the way. When it dropped, a lot of people had a problem with that being his album after a 5-year hiatus, but he kind of showed that making an album that's important and that's about something that has a vision, that also gives it staying power. Just because creating an album that's full of bops doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a classic album or it's going to stick with you. Mr. Morales sticks with me, and I can listen back to it and still feel something and still want to replay it again and again. But just going with Damn, Good Kid, Mad City. I'm not as big a T-Pab as some people are. I still consider it a classic album, but I would actually rate it as my third favorite Kendrick album. Regardless, people can say I just don't get it or whatever, which is fine. I'm rating him as my best rapper of all time, so I don't can't get too much hate from Kendrick stands out there. But I just think he's a total package. Delivery. He has a million deliveries. He has a million flows. I'll go out and say it that do some of his voices that he throws out there because he does so many different ones of them. Are some of them kind of lame? Yeah, probably. But you just can't fault the man because he's a jack of all trades. He does a million different flows. He has a million different voices. He can rap about anything from social injustice to, getting some to making a club banger to rapping about rapping. He's an amazing storyteller. His albums have amazing concepts all the way through. He seems to do everything with intention. He's a great lyricist, a great writer, a great technician. I hear a lot of people, their big knock against Kendrick is, well, he's a good lyricist. He's maybe even a great lyricist, but he's not like top level lyricist. And I'm just like, I hear that, and I don't necessarily disagree, but I'm like, who are you comparing him to? Are you comparing him to Nas? Who are you comparing him to? A$AP Rock? Like, he's not on, Nas's level or A$AP Rock's level, but I can't think of too many lyricists better outside of that. I mean, are you Pharaoh Monch? Is that who we're thinking about when we're thinking about people who are killing him? Lupe Fiasco, maybe? But you're talking about like the 4 or 5 greatest lyricists of all time, and then you have to start talking about Kendrick, and that's what you consider his weak spot to be. That's when things start to rise. Like, Kendrick is just too good at too many things to be rated lower. Then on top of that, you can talk about hits and record sales. And obviously that's where, Drake stands are going to be like, well, he's nothing. He can't even, sniff Drake's shoes when it comes to record sales. And that may be true, but Kendrick is still an absolute superstar. And that you cannot deny. I mean, maybe you could deny it. I've seen people try. But he's a superstar. He's a lyricist. He's a storyteller. He's got multiple flows. He's a technician. He's a great writer. There's not much you can say that Kendrick doesn't encapsulate. He's just so well rounded. I don't think he's gonna. Do I think when hip hop is dead and gone and we're all gone? Well, if we're gone in a couple of years, maybe he would still be there. But do I think he's not someone can't knock him off his throne? I don't think so. I don't think he's the perfect rapper. But if you just combine all the things and then production, willingness to experiment, like is he willing to get as experimental as like Tyler the Creator? Not really. But man, he has tried to he's rapped on a bunch of different beats. Plus, he's a killer feature most of the time. Uh, some of the stuff he was doing on the new Baby Keem album really left me scratching my head. It almost makes me doubt the GOAT status that I'm putting him in. But anyways, I digress. There's just too much positives. Damn is just an amazing album. For whatever reason, hipsters have decided that Damn is like not even close to T-Pab or Good Kid, Mad City. I cannot comprehend that. Damn is an amazing album front to back. I don't know why hipsters have decided that album is inferior to the other two. I would put it in the Trinity, and I would actually put it right there with GKMC, and then I'd probably put T-Pab third, and then I would probably put Mr. Morale, and then you probably have GNX and G and X and Section 80 together, then you could put Untitled Unmastered and then Overly Dedicated. But I think that there's plenty more left. That's the other thing that makes Kendrick exciting. Nas is obviously still making stuff and it's still good stuff, but do I think that Kendrick can still drop a classic on us? I definitely think so. I don't, with a lot of these other guys in the top 5 or 10. Well, I mean, some of them have passed, so it's beyond their ability to drop another classic. But I think Kendrick's best work could still be ahead of him. Well, maybe not his best work. He set the bar pretty high, but I still think there could be classics in Kendrick's future. It makes it very exciting. He's an amazing artist. I listen to him a ton. I think all of his albums have replay value. I can sit here and glaze them as much as you want, but my main thesis and my main reason why I think Kendrick is the greatest rapper of all time is just because he's so complete and so good at so many things. He kind of checks every single box you can think of. You also might want to check his box. The other complaint I would hear, and I'm kind of a left-leaning person, if not, an outright socialist, but anyways, but another knock is you could kind of say he's fake. He's a fake revolutionary figure. I don't find. I mean, obviously, you listen to some of his stuff, and you could say, well, it could be more revolutionary. It could be more hard hitting. He could be more of a Chuck D figure. He could be more confrontational, right? That could be another adequate knock on him. So there is reasons to say that he's kind of a socially palatable revolutionary, and people can give him shit for that. And I can see that angle too. But like I said, he's too good at too many things. His catalog is too solid. He's too complete for me to rate him as anything other than 1. All right, so that was my video of top 50/top 60 rappers of all time list. I am glad to be done with it. I love hip hop, but I'm ready to start talking about some other music. I actually kind of have a couple video ideas. I was going to go through my top 30 punk bands of all time. I also created a top 30 list, or I was working on a top 30 list of reggae dancehall MCs, because I feel like that's kind of underrepresented in this discussion of top MCs or top rappers. Dancehall MCs is a huge, amazing tradition. Such amazing music comes out of the Caribbean, and those MCs deserve some shine too. So I don't know. Let me know. Do you want me to hear me talk about punk or reggae/dancehall? Let me know. And thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe. Please leave thumbs up. Please leave a comment, even if it's just to tell me I'm an idiot. I would appreciate it, just to get some movement on this video. And I appreciate all of you. Have a good night.